All right. I am joined by one of my favorite people in the sport here, Myles Amine, multiple time world champion or world championship competitor and two-time Olympian now. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Just living the simple life of training for the Olympics. Basically just eat, sleep, train. So, yeah, that's the mode we're in right now.
I like it. I like it. Well, you have been mixing in there a little bit of podcasting as well, which has been fun. It's funny. I literally was just watching on Friday being the host of the podcast versus being the guest in this one. But talk a little bit about the hot seat. You've so far had Malik, your brother, and then Jaden Cox on. Yeah, just talk about it and the ideas behind it.
Yeah, so athlete to kind of maybe preface, I started a company back in the fall of October called Athlete, which really the thing that I wanted to accomplish most was to give more firsthand access to the world-class athletes. And I'm a wrestler, so starting off with wrestling, but give that access that high schoolers, youth, the youth athletes, and even just, parents or somebody that's, just curious of what it looks like to be a world-class athlete. I thought it'd be really cool to kind of give a platform where athletes can speak for themselves. And so that was the idea behind Athlete. And then I was talking with one of my buddies who's big in media, and he's like, dude, you got to start a podcast. And I actually talked to him about that in like January of this last year. And I had a couple of ideas. I just kept thinking. Was doing research, and I was like, how could I tie in like some sort of added element? Because I think that for me, when I was thinking about starting a podcast, I always thought like Hot Ones was one that I really liked, which funny because hot seat, right? But like when
Mhm.
they eat the wings, you obviously have the Kevin Hart with the ice bath. And so I thought the added element was a really cool aspect. And then I was started thinking like, what do wrestlers, like what is something that's true to wrestlers, or that we can really like they can relate to. And one day I just remember thinking like, dude, sauna. Like, and I think it was because of the ice bath. It kind of like, what is the kind of the contrary to an ice bath? It's like it's a sauna.
Yep.
And so I had that idea for probably a month or 2 months before I actually started the podcast, but then it was the logistics of figuring out like how do you get a camera in like an actual sauna, like or get like a high quality setup to where you have mics, you have a production, and do it in an actual sauna. And we just got to the point where we're like, it's just gonna. I think there's just too much. It's too much of an uphill battle, especially for starting a podcast. Like you
Yeah.
want to just get as many guests like rolling, right, and get your first few episodes rolled out. And so then after we kind of, put that on pause, my dad actually got sent a portable sauna as a gift from one of his, I think, clients or friends or something like that. And it was sitting in our basement. And I remember laughing because my mom sent a picture of him all zipped up and like he's got the sauna and his head's popping out and it looks like he's in this like almost like extraterrestrial like alien like box.
Yeah.
It looks like he's getting about to like launch to outer space. And I thought like just I remember like out of the blue like that is hilarious. Like why did I not think about this thing? Because it adds like a funny element, but it also gets really hot. So it's like it
Yeah.
kind of accomplishes what I was looking for with the sauna piece of like in an actual sauna. And then I also thought like, hey, I don't even have to sit in it.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so I can do a lot of episodes and I'm just sitting there, but my guests will have to actually be in the hot seat. So that was kind of the from like the starting point of the company and then the idea of the podcast to where it went. And then the first two episodes, it was like, man, I remember my brother had me on a podcast. They had the cave talk um,
Hmm.
back over COVID. And they did a really good job for the episodes that they did produce. So I was like, it'd be kind of cool to for him and Jordan to pass the torch that way and having him as the first guest. But then as far as like, I guess the last thing is the whole idea behind the podcast is the person sits in the sauna, and I put on a timer to see how long they can stay in. And it does get way more uncomfortable. Like once you get like 15 to 20 minutes in is when you really start to feel the heat. Um, So it just adds an added element of, maybe we can bring out some of the the authenticity of, it's really hard to hide when you're getting uncomfortable, right? You just start speaking straight
Yeah.
from straight from the truth. So that's the idea. And it keeps it a little bit shorter too in that way that, you don't go on for hours and hours because that person's like, get me the hell out of this thing.
Yeah, a nice manageable episode, 30, 40 minutes, and you're getting real talk because there's not enough room to filibuster anymore when you're sitting in that hot seat. So
Yeah.
uh absolutely. So you mentioned Malik and Jaden were the first two episodes here. Who do we have upcoming that we can look forward to?
So I have Alec Pantaleo. Alex, I love just having discussions with Alex, so I wanted him to be one of my next guests.
How
I have
excited was he to get back into a sauna
what
after
was that?
cutting down? How excited was he to get back into a sauna after cutting down to 65?
Well, that's what's so funny, right? He's talked multiple times about some gruesome experiences, but out of all people, he saunas the most out of anybody I know. So it's almost like he has some sort of sadistic relationship with the sauna that he likes to go in there and suffer, even after all the torment it's put him through.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so Alec will be one of the next guests. Austin Gomez, he's going to be in the coming weeks. And then as far as the next guest, I'm kind of, I want to keep it. I have so many great, right, like a plethora of, wrestlers that I could choose from just in the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club in Michigan. But we're also trying to like do our best to even get some different perspectives, maybe some coaches and stuff like that, or trainers, psychologists. Like I think I'm trying to get the full spectrum of like what I was kind of describing earlier with athlete, which is, like what it takes to be an elite athlete, kind of getting the perspective of top performers in every aspect of sport, not just the athletes themselves.
No, that's huge, and that's a good way to transition into it, right? So, real quick, here's where you can access some of the athlete content. The handles on Instagram are at athletes. On Twitter, it is athlete trained, or excuse me, at athlete trained, and YouTube, it is at ath_elite. And yeah, that is spelled ATHELITE. So, um, but yeah, talk a little bit about. I mean, because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, gotta follow immediately. I mean, I'm all in on Team Amine, right? So I'm gonna check this out. And I think it started off with me seeing a lot of workouts that you were posting. I tried one of them and was just totally beat up afterwards. But what's some of the great content that people can expect from you guys?
So right now we're really trying to just kind of commercialize. Actually, not even commercialize is the wrong word because we want to give it for free, right?
Mhm.
I guess just give away a lot of like technique videos, like wrestling technique, tapping into a little bit more of the personalities of some of the top athletes. So finding out like what does their lifestyle look like, or what are some of the quirks and um, I guess some of the hobbies that they have. But then also there is a training aspect of like giving away some workouts, giving away training tips, giving away kind of mental tips that some of the best athletes in the world use, or even, just college wrestlers and, top level wrestlers as a whole. And then there's an entertainment aspect to it too. So for obviously when you go on social media, sometimes it's like, all right, if I just finished a workout or I finished a long day at work, um, I want to go on there and maybe I'm not looking forward to some guy telling me that I got to do this, this, and this. So actually, like one of the videos that's done the best for us was just one of the wrestlers, Bo Mantanona and Dylan Gilcher, performing like a WWE like stunt in wrestling.
That was awesome.
It's an incredible feat. So just like entertainment, just showing that there's also a fun side to this, and um, part of life is just being entertained and getting to enjoy fun videos. So we're including those in there as well. Very sports related though. I mean, in wrestling, I would say even to this point, it's basically all wrestling. So
Yeah, well, what I've seen so far and followed, I mean, like you said, it's entertaining, it's fun, it's if you're into workouts and seeing some cool stuff and figuring out, again, like you said, what some of the top athletes are doing, this is a great way to do it and for people to challenge themselves along the way,
Mhm.
while being entertained. So
Yeah.
check all of that out. But yeah, man, let's get to the world class side of things, right? You're going to your second Olympics. So that's pretty awesome. And then on top of that, you've got a contingent of Cliff Keen Wrestling Club guys going with you, and Adam Kuhn and Mason Paris and Austin Gomez, who we referenced before. So what's it like going with such a big group this time? I mean, are you imparting any wisdom or thoughts, or how's that working out?
I would say the biggest thing that I've noticed so far is it just makes it a little bit easier to train and to show up to practice. I definitely, as much as wrestling is an individual sport, and I do include aspects of training where I'm just like solo mission, going on my own runs, doing my own lifts, that kind of stuff. That balance of having a team and showing up with, the energy of the and the camaraderie that we have, because also these are guys that have trained alongside for the last, 8 years for the guy
Mhm.
like Adam Kuhn, Mason Paris, and even Austin, like, it feels like it feels like he's been there for 8 years. So it's really just made it more enjoyable to show up and know like, hey, these guys we're all in it together at this point, as much as we're gonna be, handling our own business, it's like we get to show up to practice and kind of feed off of each other's energy. So I would say that it definitely makes it more enjoyable. Just like, I would say that this kind of you can also kind of relate this to anything. It's like when you have a team behind you or when you have, a group of people that are all kind of moving in the same direction towards the same goal.
Yeah.
Um, it just makes the whole experience that much more enjoyable and, easier to show up each day.
Yeah, the common goal. I mean, despite wrestling for different countries and having different affiliations as far as that goes, the common goal is the same, right? And everybody's working towards the same sort of thing. And it's nice that nobody's overlapping weight classes or styles too, so everybody can push each other and still, you could go 4 for 4 technically with all
Yeah.
those goals. Um, so how are you personally feeling different from your first Olympic experience to this one?
Um, it's a great question. I would say one thing that sticks out pretty drastically is the whole there's no COVID to kind of put a fork in the road here. This time around, at least knock on wood, right?
Mhm.
Forbidding any sort of craziness in the next 2 months. Um, but I the biggest thing is just having that experience under my belt and knowing like I've been through this multiple times before. Nothing, like the changes that I've made have only been for the better.
Mhm.
I think that allows me to kind of be a little bit more relaxed. Like I naturally am a very high strung person. I think, when if you surveyed most high, athletes at the like Olympic level, I'm sure that's probably a commonality you're going to find is that, we're we're very anxious, right? Very like, high stress beings. That's just what it takes to a lot of the times, get to this level. But I've learned a little bit more to balance that out with, um, relaxation, zen, like a zen like kind of almost presence, trying to have that when I'm not in the wrestling room. And then just a little bit more acceptance of, hey, like I'm gonna do everything I can to achieve my goal of being an Olympic champion. But at the end of the day, I'm very happy with, what I've done so far. And like I just feel very grateful for this opportunity at this like point in time. Whereas like when I was going into the last Olympics, it was a little bit more, I had to really, really force that kind of thought process into my head because it was my first Olympics and I just felt like it was a lifelong dream to win an Olympic medal or, be an
Mhm.
Olympian. And so I probably put a little bit more pressure on myself in that moment. And I guess I've learned that like there's moments where I haven't put that kind of pressure on myself and I won the Big Tens or, I won a world medal last year. Like, and it was a lot more of a relaxed process mentally for me going into those tournaments. And I still competed the same way, if not better, than when I was like could barely sleep because I was so anxious to go compete, kind of in the earlier college days or, going into that first Olympics.
No, for sure. I imagine just the experience would certainly be helpful with that. It's funny to hear you say that you're high strung because knowing you for the time that I have and watching the videos and everything you're doing with Athlete and how easygoing it is, listening to the podcast with you and Malik, it was like you don't feel like it's a high strung thing. You seem to balance it well. So well done with that. But um, how does this is just something that I just thought of a second ago, but watching a guy like Stefan Micic win the world championships last year, right? Does that instill any level of confidence in you as well? It's like, oh, I watched my buddy do it, I can do it too. Or how does that impact, if at all?
100%. I think that going back to like what I was saying earlier is like you feed off of the energy of those around you, your friends, your teammates, and Stefan's somebody that's one of my best friends. So I watched, the kind of attention to detail and the training that he put in. And it's really helped me to kind of add some of that to my own wrestling, and
Mhm.
my own training. And then also to say like, hey, he and I trained alongside each other for the last 6, 7 years. He's at Chicago Galaxy now, and his dad has done an incredible job with him. And I think that like that world title, he really manifested that, and they really worked hard to get that. But yeah, I think that it just shows that it can be done by anybody, right? It doesn't have to come from, he beat a guy that I would put as one of the best pound for pound wrestlers in Nguyev.
Yeah,
Um, and that match was, it wasn't pretty, but he found a way, right? And
yeah. They
Stefan,
were all wild, man. That
yeah,
was one of the most like my heart was just like in my chest or like in my throat the whole time. But yeah, he got it done.
yeah, he got it done. And I think, it just shows that, like you said, anybody can be beat on any given day. And, just if you put yourself in the fight and give yourself a chance, anything is possible, especially in wrestling. It's not like 11 guys out on the field where you got to rely on 10 other guys to make the right moves. It's like just one guy, right? And it's the same goes for like the guy you're wrestling, it's just one mistake. So, yeah, I think that, that gives me the confidence to know like anything is possible at this point.
I like it. Now, talk a little bit about kind of how you're training at this point, right? I mean, you're a couple months out. How much of it is pushing yourself to make sure that the conditioning and cardio is there and that you've got the confidence, physically and mentally in that aspect of it, but also trying to balance out the injury prevention piece, right? And making sure you're going into this as close to 100% physically as possible.
I think for this part, like this is why I'm so blessed to have like just a coaching staff that I really trust and rely on. Because I like to research my own, like I like to research and do a little bit of my own training, or just as far as like recovery and kind of the outside aspects of wrestling, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
going for my own like lifts, my own runs, like doing my own recovery. But really, just integrating that into the training schedule and kind of communicating that to the coaches I have. They've been so awesome. And I've kind of told them like, I had Sergey Beloglazov, right? He's a 2-time Olympic champion, 6-time world champion. And I kind of told him like, you know how to do this. You've gotten it done, 8 times before. So I totally trust in, just following whatever you say, I'm gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have like the same thing for recovery and what you think I should be doing off the mat, like I really want to follow that because I know that you're someone, and not just Sergey, but like right, Sean Bormet, it's the same. Like he's been my coach, he's been the guy that's gotten me to this level when I came to Michigan. And so I just have so much trust in both those guys that it kind of takes a lot of weight off my shoulders to have to figure that out for myself.
Mm-hmm.
To just be like, hey, what should I be doing? And then I do take a little bit of accountability, right? To like, no, okay, nutrition. I'm not going to ask them to to like do my full nutrition. Like I kind of, I also seek a little bit of outside guidance for that, right? And same with my strength conditioning. There's a guy, Amir Rad, who's been a game changer for both Mason and I.
Mm-hmm.
over the last 2, 3 years, we've been working with him, and he's kind of has a really unique blend of like functional strength training where it's not like totally like holistic functional patterns type stuff where you're not lifting
Mhm.
any weights, but it's a very thorough and well thought about like training session and process. So the injury prevention stuff um, really is covered and by him because he's so meticulous and pays attention to the details of like, okay, like what are the areas where a wrestler usually has imbalances, and we're going to work on those and fix those to make sure that you can do everything you can to prevent an injury. Because at the end of the day, right, what
Right.
like shit happens.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
It can
exactly.
happen to anybody. So, yeah, I guess to sum it up, it's just really about having a team of professionals, right? It's just like your whole team has to be fully on board, and it's part of my job as, the athlete to communicate like exactly what I need and try to, kind of develop a team around me that can, I guess, cater to those needs. You're
Right.
very, very spoiled as a professional athlete. It's kind of something that I've learned to just accept is like I'm one that doesn't really I don't like being the center of attention, or even more so like having to ask for a lot of things. I
Uh-huh.
usually like I've always been someone, and my dad's kind of taught me is like, right, like you want to kind of get your own food at the end of the day and make it
Uh-huh.
happen for yourself, but it's just really not it's not possible at this stage. If especially if you want to be like, the best in the world, you have to have a team around you. I think anybody that says otherwise is they're fibbing. They're not,
Yeah, yeah.
not true.
Well, it's been so great just the changes of the last several years and the last, 10, 15 years as far as what it used to look like, to make an Olympic team and what you needed to do to support yourself and your systems. And now I know that there was just a big fundraiser with the Cliff Keen Wrestling Club to raise a bunch of money for the Olympians and everything like that. So it's definitely changed way. I mean, certainly for the better, and you see it in the results too. You've got guys that were as accomplished as you that want to stick around and keep competing, and that
Mm.
wasn't always the case back in the day. So,
Yeah.
well, let's talk Michigan real quick, right before we let you go. So last year was an exciting season. Obviously at the NCAA tournament there was a lot of teams competing for a trophy there at the end, and Michigan was able to get it done with a unique blend of a lot of really young guys in the lineup, as well as some older guys and transfers and those sorts of things. So, what are some of the main things that you took away just from last season and watching those guys battle it out?
Um, I think one of the things I learned really quickly is that we're really lucky here in Ann Arbor. We had like I think 5 transfers this year, between the 3 Northwestern guys, and then Shane and Austin, Shane
Mhm.
Griffith, Austin Gomez. And to see how quickly those guys adapted and kind of just became like Michigan men, in my opinion, was pretty awesome. I think it just shows that like our culture here has really grown since even I got here. Well, I got here a long time ago now. 8 years is not a short period of time, but just to show that like I think that even they were a little bit surprised of like, oh, these guys are very welcoming, and I can, it almost felt like I'd been here for, my entire career, even though they were almost like mercenaries, kind of being hired to come in for a year and then they're in and out. But um the it really showed that like we even with a team that's so different and dynamic, like having all these grad transfers, and then you have like a 5 year difference with a lot of these guys, right? Like the freshmen that are really, in my eyes, promising between like the Sergio Lemley, Bo Mantanona, all those guys. Um, like they were able to just kind of mesh so well as a team, which you wouldn't see a lot of the times. And I got to see it from an outsider's perspective, right? Because I was more on the RTC side, and I saw that, these guys really did blend super well together. And it was definitely a concern, I think, from, some of the coaches, and kind of just older guys, RTC guys like coming in is like, how is this going to work out? And I know that from my experience, it did work out really well when Stevan, Logan, and I were, the 7th year guys, and we were on that team 100, and we had a really great year, and there was just such a wide dynamic of guys, but we all kind of came together as a team. I saw that same thing this year, and it's going to be really interesting because this next year is going to be the first year where um these younger guys are kind of going to be they're going to be at the head of the head of the ship, kind of leading the helm, with a lot of all the basically all the grad transfers being done, and then you have uh like basically Cameron obviously leaving now. And so there's going to be guys that are going to have to step up, and I think that leaves a really good opportunity for some of these younger guys to kind of shuffle in the next era of Michigan wrestling. And just being in the room with kind of some of these younger guys, I think that this freshman class right now is really special. It reminds me a lot of the class that I came in it with, where there's just they have everything it takes, right? They have all the tools. So it just becomes, kind of limiting the factors that, you just really can't control. And who's to say what, like injuries and other things of that sort. So yeah, I would say I'm really excited. And I think this last year was probably or I don't want to say the last year in a while because I don't make any coaching decisions. But
Yeah.
as far as the transfers go and some of the upperclassmen, like this, for the majority or kind of for the most part of it, like this is the fresh, like kind of these younger guys are going to get a chance to really make some noise and kind of, like I said, kind of shuffle in the new era of Michigan wrestling.
100%. Well, and I was just pumped last year to see Ragusin be able to get on the podium and kind of punch through that, whatever hurdle he needed to get through
Yeah.
to get that done. I mean, he's been so much fun to watch since he jumped into the lineup as a true freshman, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
Dylan, and I will say that, as much as those younger guys, that is the next era. Like Dylan for sure still sits at kind of his leadership was really seen last year, right? Pulling his red shirt, kind of making an unselfish decision for the team. So it actually is beautiful because you still have a guy like Dylan right there to kind of be the leader, but as far as maybe like it's not so top heavy in a sense that like there was last year, I think in our lineup we had 7 or 8 guys that were, grad students or
right, right.
and beyond. So it'll be a majority, right? It's going to shift back to majority younger, but you still have the leadership of guys like Dylan Ragusin where, it's that's kind of how it used to be, right? Before
Mhm.
the pre-NIL, pre-COVID era, where you'd have a couple upperclassmen that led the team and then a lot of younger guys that looked up to them. Um, the COVID era kind of shifted that for a few years. So I think we're back to the things are back on schedule.
Well, and then one final guy who just joined, which Chase Saldate jumping in with everybody there. Obviously had battles with Will Lewan for many years while he was competing at state, and um, I've seen some videos you guys have collaborated on together. He's been pretty active on social media and fun. So, what impact do you think he's going to have on the lineup and just kind of bringing his perspective as well?
I think Chase is awesome. First of all, I think he's just as far as like off the mat, he brings such a high level of energy. And I mean, if you follow him on social media, you'll see this right away that he's just a very optimistic, has a very like just kind of an aura to him when he steps in the room. And I actually got to train with Chase during COVID. We were in the same room for a while, so got to kind of know him over that period of time. And I think that he's someone that when he announced his transfer to Michigan that I was like super pumped about because I always thought this guy should be like a multiple time All-American. And I mean that in the best way possible, that like his talent level is top 3 in the country in my opinion. It's just kind of been some unfortunate circumstances, and just the margin of error is so thin in college wrestling that it can sometimes just be that way. But I think that getting him, in the room, he's already been, training with us at the RTC over, this last month or so. Um, I think he's going to have, a really big impact on the team, and he's going to do a great job. I'm really excited about it, I guess is kind of the wrap up on it. I think that, also Jacob Cardenas coming in and
That's
being
right.
a transfer, he's somebody that, I know a little bit. I was, training at Cornell. I got to talk with him a few times here and there, and seems like, those two guys are just like, I think that people have a misconception maybe that we just like go out and we just recruit whoever is available, and like whoever is like the highest placing guy, but it's like the people that we've had come in as transfers are also outstanding human beings. I think that they're really on and off the mat. They carry themselves really well, and they're basically they fit our culture really well. And that's something that I really give a lot of credit to our coaches is like, a lot of the outside noise is like Michigan just going in the portal, picking up anybody, but it's like we've pretty much been however many we've got, we're 7 for 7 or 8 for 8 as far as like just kind of stand out, guys and stand out like humans for who we've recruited. And so I think that part is left out a lot of the time. So I can say the same for both these guys coming in.
100%, man. And we're really excited to watch what you're able to do this summer. And good luck to you and everything else going on. Team Amine all the way, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Kevin. Appreciate it. Love Blood Round, man. We've been Blood Round loyalists since I think dang near the inception. So
Yeah, yeah. Been
appreciate you
going on a
guys.
hot minute though. We got to get your dad back on before the
Yeah.
Olympics. He's usually been good luck.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sure all it takes is one text. He'll be on.